And these happen because you have to have, I think you have to have, yeah, and then it's just for most over here. It's like that.
I don't know, but I know that I can have like a little card.
That's
Put in
the-
here. Yeah, I can put in here and I can just give it to them.
Oh, it literally shows kind of everything.
That way they can get to them.
I've not been able to get it more. The tree is called CPM. Like the same. They usually use it. They were like, have this one. That's the reverse of something like the top. So I could be from the camera's edge, but honestly, on the camera, because it had the connection to the shop. Because all of those effects, it takes the community. So, they're all.
Okay.
You guys are all ready? Yeah. Everybody ready?
Ready?
I want to make sure you're ready, so I don't want to wait. Are we waiting on anybody else outside? Just trying to see if anybody else was coming in. Can I do a what? I'm sorry? Sure. Yeah. Just check 1, 2. Can you hear me okay? Just checking the mic. Can you hear me okay? Testing, testing, testing. Just checking the mic. Yes, ma'am. All right. Doesn't look like anybody else is coming in. So good afternoon. I appreciate everybody coming out today. Today, I just wanted to give you an update of what our investigative team is doing. And then, of course, make myself available to answer any questions. I did get some answers from some questions that were asked yesterday I didn't have. So I've got some updated information there. First off, our investigators today have spent the majority of their time combing through the many documents and items that were removed from the home and the vehicle last night. Again, just trying to trace back any potential leads of where Noel's at. So they've been combing through all kinds of documents, sorting out and building timelines on trying to confirm when the last time that we have seen Noel or anybody has seen Noel. Again, the timeline is for us from the family is last seen in November of 2022. We're trying to narrow that timeline down and see when we can last prove that he was last seen. So our investigative staff has been working on that. And they're also working with another team of investigators that has stepped up to help us out. And that's been truly helpful with the resources that they've been able to bring to the table. One of the questions that was asked yesterday was in relation to the how Cindy knew the property owner and how long she had lived there. This is one of those situations where I think the property owner was truly just a generous guy trying to help somebody out in need at the time. I was able to learn that Cindy has resided at that house for the last 9 years. That shed was only built a couple of years ago, so for part of the time, obviously, she was living inside prior to being moved outside into the shed where her family has grown. You do the math. 9 years ago, we've still got a few kids that weren't born at the time, so the family has obviously grown, which is probably why they had the shed built to kind of expand out that way. The searches yesterday revealed a lot of documents and some things that we're checking out. We've got several more leads that have come in, so we want to keep everybody on top of sending those tips in. We've had a lot of former friends of the family that have called us, and a lot of people who have interacted with the family that have called us, and that information has been incredibly useful. That information has been incredibly useful in this investigation. If you can't tell, it's been a long few days that we're all getting really exhausted. So I'm thankful for the help that we've got stepping up to the plate with us now. So I'll be happy to answer any other questions that y'all may have or may have developed overnight.
Chief, have you exhausted reaching out to family members, both Cindy and the boyfriend?
Sure.
None of those family members have Noel?
Yeah, that was one of our missions today. That was on our task list today, was to retrace our steps and again go visit with everybody. Our investigative team has been out doing that today, not just checking to see if Noel's there, but also talking with him again and asking questions again and seeing if we find anything different or anything new that may pop up. So we've had detectives out today visiting with family members. And we've had investigators talking to family members over the phone again today in Mexico, retracing those steps as well. So none of that has proved to provide any new information, but just reiterate what we already know, and that's that they don't have Noel. Yeah, I don't, without revealing too much of the investigation, we think that those were coached statements that were provided to us and not necessarily with an intent on the individual providing those statements to us of being deceitful, but just the fact that they were coached to tell us that. We believe the mother to try to steer us. Correct. Yeah.
You started out with investigative tips and anonymous tip about Noel having not been seen for months. Kind of transition, you have a warrant, an arrest warrant about false information being given in a missing persons report. Has this shifted more toward criminal investigation?
Yeah. So, we got to be. I want to be very careful as we proceed with this. This is obviously becoming more and more concerning. We're on day 5 since we've been notified of this and have been working this as a police department. So I want to be very careful as we proceed about how much I state regarding the investigation itself, because I certainly don't want to hinder any prosecution that may come from this. And I can tell you the teams that are on here, yes, it is swinging more towards a criminal investigation. We do have supporting circumstantial evidence and things that are leading us that direction. So we're certainly taking that path. I mentioned the other day that we haven't had any physical evidence that has come up. That doesn't mean that we're not doing our job and that we're not going out there and pursuing what we need to be pursuing. It just means that the physical evidence hasn't been present. There's certainly a significant amount of circumstantial evidence. I mean, when we talk about the circumstances surrounding this case, everybody's suspicion rises, and that's what we do as a police department. Obviously, our suspicion has rose as well, so we have to dig deeper and dig deeper, and everything we've been coming across primarily has been circumstantial evidence. So, we're doing things now with this investigation to obtain more physical evidence, more concrete evidence through other means, data collection, and those sorts of things that we traditionally do in law enforcement. And now we've got the support to do that, so we're happy to move that forward.
More leeway, so to speak, to pursue things internationally. We have a crime.
Sure.
So does that enable you to interact with federal liaisons more so to maybe pursue where you believe they are?
Yeah, sure. So we're actively engaged now with our federal partners at Homeland Security. We began engagement earlier today with the FBI. We are starting to work with other partners on this. Everman is obviously still the lead on this, but we're working with them and we have their support on that. The arrest warrant itself doesn't play too much into that. The charge that the arrest warrant's issued for is obviously for a false report regarding a missing child. That's a misdemeanor in the state of Texas, so that doesn't really throw a whole bunch of red flags up as far as getting federal assistance, or when we start talking about extradition. I don't think we're going to do cross-country extradition on a misdemeanor warrant out of Texas. But there's also a probation violation warrant. There's other things that are moving this forward. The evidence that we've been collecting, the circumstantial evidence, and there's things I just can't go into regarding it for the protection of the investigation. But the circumstantial evidence that's coming up is certainly amounting to a level that becomes criminal. And so it's giving us the ammunition that we need to be able to keep pressing this forward. Like I mentioned the other day, that's the whole point in us wanting to be as meticulous as we can with these searches and going back and double checking and triple checking and making sure that we're as thorough as we can be, is to find, even if it is circumstantial evidence, enough circumstantial evidence to give us the ammunition we need to push this forward.
You were mentioning to me, I just said to know that you've been in contact with federal investigators, the FBI earlier today. Just for clarification, this sounded a statement a little bit ago saying that, quote, the FBI is poised to assist if we receive a request from them.
Yes.
So has there officially been a formal request?
We've been making that request within the last hour. Yes. Yep.
You mentioned investigative teams here recently. Is that who you're talking about?
No, so we've had great groups step up. You know, law enforcement in not just in DFW, but all across the state. You know, we work well together. And so we've had investigative specialists from other agencies that have offered to step up. We've had groups from other agencies that have offered to step up and assist us with this. So the investigative team is really, really broad. We're talking, you know, not just local level, but state level, now federal level that are becoming a part of this. And truly, it's really formed into really a task force consisting of investigators that all specialize in these kind of very convoluted and problematic cases that are traditionally hard to investigate. So we're happy to have anybody within the field that has an expertise in this field to come to the table and be a part of the solution here. Because ultimately the goal is to find Noel, right?
Chief, you mentioned a probation violation. Is that stemming from a car accident that happened a few years ago that led to the?
I know it's stemming from a previous offense unrelated to this. I don't know if it's specifically a car accident. I believe it's a DWI. Whether it involved an accident or not, I'm not entirely sure. Our agency wasn't involved in that charge.
So by day 5 of your investigation, in your heart of hearts, where is the well?
I don't know. I'm being very careful about how I want to speculate on this. Human trafficking is very real. I talked about that rumor yesterday. Human trafficking is very real. It's very real in Texas as a border state. We can't rule out that possibility. We can't rule out the possibility I think we've all been fearing for the last several days. We also can't rule out the extensiveness of this family and that we haven't been able to identify maybe a family member that she has refused to name that this child may be with. There's a lot of holes within the answers that we've been getting as a part of this investigation that we've just got to continue to fill. So I'm just not ready to really speculate just yet on what I think has happened to Noel. I'm still very optimistic. I said that yesterday, and I'm going to continue to be optimistic until I find evidence otherwise.
Did the biological father come to this way maybe to help out? Maybe reaching out to family members, like you said, that you might
Sure.
not know, and we might know.
Sure. So he not coming this way, but he is being very cooperative and very helpful with us as we're conversing with him over the phone. We have engaged with him even today. So he's helping us out quite a bit and sharing any information that he can regarding this.
No, those pictures.
Go ahead, David. I'm sorry.
The past history with social services.
Sure.
I know you were saying yesterday you can't get into specifics about what those cases were surrounding, but when we're talking about a living environment, 9 family members in this shed-like structure behind the house. I know it looks like they had access inside the main house, and for a while they were living in that main house before the shed was built, but they've been there for years. I think you said maybe roughly 9 years. It seems like social services had to have known that was really the circumstances. Is there a lack of oversight, or is something missed? Was there a red flag that, hey, why are these kids living in this type of environment without so much as a restaurant in this shed? I mean, just what's your takeaway?
Yeah, I'm not going to speculate on another agency and how they've operated. I don't know if these kids were under supervision. I don't know what the programs were involved with CPS. This is our first time engaging with this family as a police department, or being engaged in an investigation with this family as a police department. So it's really hard, not knowing all the details and the prior history, to sit here and try to judge their actions, and I'm not going to do that. I can tell you that CPI or CPS has been extremely helpful in this case, and we've been working with them. We've been working with Alliance for Children and those organizations. They're obviously sharing their data, they're sharing their insight, they're sharing their beliefs and their experience, and they're at the table right here with us, trying to find the resolution to this case here. So I mean, I don't know anything about the prior incidents, and you know, it's certainly not my place to judge what another judge or what a judge may have ordered or what decisions were made there.
See, his picture is on the marquee out front with the telephone number.
Sure.
For people in government to see. So, do you think he's local? Do you think he's out of Texas, out of the country at this point?
I wish I had an answer for you. I don't know. And we've gotten tips all over the state, and we've received tips. We got a tip the other night from Georgia that he might have been seen. We've received tips today from places like Ozona and San Antonio of people who believe that they may have saw him. And that's what we want. And we're checking into those. Every single one that comes in, we're following up, and we're sending police out to go confirm or deny what's going on. I don't know. And I wish I had more information there for you. I really do.
What specifically did you request from the feds in that request you made within the last hour?
Any assistance that they can provide. So they'll come in and they'll review the case with us, and they'll make sure that their assets and resources, whatever they've got, will be available to us. Yes. Yeah.
There's a welfare, there's a call for a welfare check. What's the difference between how police department responds versus the FPS respond?
Well, I think the difference is the authority. So for us to be involved, typically when we respond to a welfare check, we're just checking on the welfare of an individual. If we don't see anything that provides any reasonable suspicion or probable cause that a crime is being committed, typically that's where our role stops. If we see signs that there may be a crime being committed or somebody might be in danger, obviously we would continue. The officer didn't see any of those signs indicated on the initial welfare check. You know, CPS that's a completely different arm from law enforcement. You know, they're not law enforcement. They have different authority than law enforcement does, and they specialize in what they do. They've got a whole different way of operating than police departments do. So typically when we have a welfare check that comes in, it's law enforcement that goes out and does the check. We look for any initial signs of any danger or confirm or deny whether somebody's at that site. And then CPS typically will make a decision based off that information, whether to make the scene and work with us or to follow up on the information that was provided, which was the case on this incident.
We had a photographs yesterday. Do you have any ever thoughts maybe in an airport where you found a car, the vehicle? Is there other places you're looking at?
We've got no leads on where he could be, and so you know there's no reason to believe he would be at the airport. And until we find some sort of evidence to give us a direction on where he may be, again, I'm not convinced he's dead. And I think that's where a lot of this stuff goes. We don't know that he hasn't been involved in human trafficking. We don't know that he hasn't been given to a family member. We just haven't been able to identify. You know, we're still chasing down all those leads. Now, if I get pointed in a specific direction, then of course we'll start expanding on that direction. But right now I can't focus all of our energy on the direction and belief that he may be deceased when he very well may be alive, and we just need to find him.
What efforts are being made to pinpoint the family that, you know, their location is easy? I know this didn't have an exact location of their final.
Sure. Sure, and we have been working on that. I can't disclose too much about that as it's part of the investigation, but obviously our federal partners have a lot more leadway there than we do, and we'll look to them to give us that information.
Noel lives with disabilities, but does he require routine medical support just for everyday living?
Yeah, so in one of those photos that we shared, you see him sitting in front of the couch. And if you look very closely in that photo, you'll actually see his nebulizer right there over his shoulder, right there in the couch. I mean, he had chronic lung disease. He requires treatment. He requires, you know, albuterol treatments and so forth, and oxygen at times. And I think that's been the primary health concern that we've had is he getting that treatment? Obviously, that in our mind is the most dangerous thing that he suffers from, that he needs to get the treatment for. He suffers from other disabilities and things like social disorders and developmental delays and those sorts of things. But obviously the oxygen is the number one concern. And we don't know if he's getting that right now or not.
Gee, there is a possibility that Cindy might tune in and see you online.
Oh, I hope so.
If that's the case,
Sure.
what do you say to Cindy?
Come back and tell me what the heck's going on. I mean, I don't understand. It makes no sense. And then I think we're all on the same page here, why a mother would abscond, you know, when we're trying to just check on the welfare of her child and while we're getting no information. You know, this is a simple investigation in my mind. You know, we're just trying to check the welfare of a child. Just tell us where the child is and let's check on the welfare. If everything's good, we're good. We move on. And that's not the case, and that's not what happened here.
Can you talk about her extended life going in DFW, and you said initially you were originally from India.
Sure.
Stateside, is there families there that have been cooperative?
Yeah, we have not identified any family here in North Texas or in the state at all. We have identified some friends of his, and we have been in communication with them, and they've been cooperating with law enforcement to what they know, but it hasn't led to much. That I don't know. Do we have an answer on that? No. I'll have that for you at the next one. Sure.
You know, Cindy had in total 9 children or 10 children, and how many?
Yeah, I've tried not to convolute this too much because it's so hard to follow. Cindy does have 10 children that we know about. So the 7 children were residing with her. She has 3 additional children that reside with her grandmother. Those children we've obviously been talking with them. They're still here in North Texas. We've obviously been talking with them, and they're, of course, a part of this investigation. Let me make sure I'm clear there. They're part of the investigation, and we've been talking with them and the other family up here. What I don't know, because I know your questions are going to be is why do they live with grandmother, and we're looking at that. It looks like it's all been voluntary and part of the agreement. Why the decision was made that 3 of them will reside with grandmother while the other 7 reside with Cindy. We just don't have all those answers, and we're still trying to get to all those answers. And it's hard to get to all of them when you're missing, so many of the people involved.
Have you all been working with the FPS as far as when she lost custody initially, like before she had the twins and her regaining custody and finding out kind of what that process was like?
Yeah, so I can't comment on previous CPS investigations, so I can't talk about that portion of it. But what I will tell you is DFPS certainly has a seat at the table every single day that we're conducting this investigation, and they're right there with us.
Time as a 3-day went from the airport, but correct me if I'm wrong, there's both parents and then all 6 kids who were at the home and all left. Any surveillance or any witness accounts from the airport for these kids going willingly? Did they say anything when they were in the airport? Say anything if they were able to?
Sure. Yeah. So we've got partners at DFW DPS who we've been working with on obtaining those videos and things. We actually, one of the tipsters that called in was actually on the flight with the family, and we've been able to converse with her about the interactions there and what she witnessed. We have been chasing down those leads and have talked to those folks, and we're working with DFW DPS on obtaining the videos, and they're tracking down any other potential leads that might be at the airport for us as well. And I'm sure a lot of the people that were on that flight are probably seeing the news from here and seeing what's going on. And we'd love to talk to more. If anybody else was on that flight or anybody else saw anything at the airport, we'd love to chat about it. I'd love to hear the insight there.
With the stepdad possibly, from speaking to a neighbor, said that he may be undocumented, is there any concern that they may not come back to the state?
I can confirm he is not undocumented. He is here legally, and there's no issues there. Is there concerns about them coming back? Well, yeah. When you flee the country and we're investigating a situation like this, yeah, there's a deep concern they may not come back, and so we've got to keep that in our mind too, which is where that federal partnership will come into play. If charges do arise from this and we get a criminal offense out of this, then certainly we'll pursue that. When a warrant is issued, as soon as a warrant is issued, she'll be a fugitive.
I mean, to be pessimistic, but we've all seen the story of the boy or girl who was just never found.
Right.
What is the protocol or the timeline to just label this as cold or?
Well, we're nowhere near that point right now. I mean, we still have a lot of work to do. We've got a lot of information to track down. We've still got a lot of options left. So we're nowhere near that point. And to answer your question of when that time comes, the answer is when we've exhausted absolutely every possibility that we can come up with to try. When everything's exhausted, then at that point. But we've still got a long ways to go before we get there.
So there's never going to be a clock.
No, there's no clock, and we're not working on a clock. And all the investigators that are on this case are obviously committed to finding out a resolution to this case, and we're not going to stop doing what we're doing until we figure out what happened. No criminal history that we have. No, ma'am.
Knowing the tight-knit small community, how has this been for you guys and everybody here?
Absolutely insane. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. I think everybody that lives here now and has lived here for a long time just absolutely cannot believe this. We've all been looking. This is one of those stories where, in law enforcement, we hear a lot of things that come in, and we're like, that didn't happen. And come to find out it didn't. We find the truth behind it. And I think at first this was one of those where, oh, come on, that didn't happen. And then we started looking into it. And of course, I think everybody feels the same as us, that we're just shocked that this happened here. Everman is a tight-knit community. She was tight-knit with her neighbors. And I know that y'all have been out talking to some of the neighbors and you've heard some of the stories and things. She was close to some of the neighbors, and even the neighbors had some positive things to say about her and the family and the kids. It's really hard to believe. I can tell you that I think the community is a little shaken by this, a little shocked at what's happened here. They're behind us 100%. They want us to find the resolution as well. So.
Sometimes we fear that the community maybe doesn't want to get involved in certain situations, but it's his fear somebody did see something and that was out of the norm, hadn't even reported it, and caused this chain of events to really start searching for him. Can you talk a little bit about just the importance of speaking up and juicing something and your concern?
Yeah, sure. I mean, if nobody brought in that anonymous tip, whoever that person was that submitted that anonymous tip to CPS, so we wouldn't be here today, and we still wouldn't know where Noel is. And at least now we've got officers and investigators on the trail to figure out what went on. So that information is really important, and we preach that a lot in our community. And I'm really, really proud. I hate to get off on a whole different tangent, but I'm really, really proud about the relationship that our police department has with our community. We've got a phenomenal relationship with our community, and we get calls all the time, and our officers are out engaging with the residents. A lot of the residents know our officers by name, and they engage all the time. So it's good to have that relationship. I know that relationship isn't across the board everywhere, but I think here in Everman, because of that relationship, we're able to get more information faster, and it allows us to typically, in most cases, resolve issues pretty promptly.
You mentioned a person on the outbound flight from DFW is one of those who's been in touch with. Did that person contact Everman PD? How did that go?
Sure. Yeah. Saw the news. Saw the news media putting out the information, and then contacted our Everman Police Department main line and spoke directly with one of our detectives on the case.
Are you able to say all of what they observed on that flight?
I'm not going to do that just yet, just because it's part of the investigation.
Can you do a little recap of the timeline? March 20th is when government made contact with spoke to you all.
Sure. Yeah. So March 20th, we received the information from CPS and the request to conduct a welfare check at Noel's residence on the 3700 block of Wisteria. We later learned that on March 21st, the family had obtained electronic travel visas for the family. The officer at the time of the welfare check, he was advised that Noel was with his father in Mexico, so we forwarded that information back. Then on March 21st, we learned that they obtained electronic travel visa. On March 23rd is when CPS contacted us back and informed us that they have checked out the information that Cindy provided related to the father. They have spoken directly to the father and advised that the father does not have Noel. And we've been able to confirm that information or verify that there's no transport data back and forth across the border through Homeland Security indicating that Noel's been to Mexico. On that evening, the 23rd, that evening on the 23rd, I don't have my notes in front of me. That evening on the 23rd is when investigators began looking into this. The 24th is when we attempted to make contact with Cindy. We learned that Cindy had removed her children from school. We learned a lot more information about, how it started to appear that she may have absconded with a child. And on the 24th is when we made the decision to go ahead and start putting out the statewide alerts. We worked with the Texas Fusion Center, which is in charge of the statewide alert system. They're in charge of administering that system. At the time, the circumstances surrounding this case are so unique, and I think we can all agree that the circumstances here are very strange and very unique, that they felt an Amber Alert was warranted in this case, so we issued an Amber Alert. Shortly after that, I think less than 24 hours later, we learned that the family was on an international flight from DFW Airport to Turkey on Turkish Airways. I think it was Flight 192. That's on the 25th, yeah. Yes. No, I'm sorry. The flight was on the 23rd. Yeah, they flew out on the 23rd. They had flown out before the Amber Alert was issued, which is why they weren't flagged at the airport. We've been asked that. They flew out because they left country before the Amber Alert was issued. Correct. Correct.
Can you talk when a parent leaves the country, they don't have to provide documents if they're the sole custodial parent then?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. And there is documentation to show that Cindy is the sole custodial parent of those kids, with the exception of the 2 5-month-olds, but father was with the 2 5-month-olds as well.
Next update?
You guys tell me. I'll keep you updated as much as I can and when y'all want. So I mean, really, you tell me. I'm going to be as transparent as I can throughout this investigation, and I'll be happy to share any updates. That's fine. That's fine. That's okay. Yeah, I got it. So we are engaged with the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and that's one of the largest associations out there. And they have a lot of ties with us, and we're working directly with them. They have a seat at the table right there with us as a part of this investigation. So they're taking all this information for us, and they're disseminating it to the other groups to help find missing people. I know that this case has drawn a lot of national attention from missing groups and true crime groups and all those organizations, and we love having them on board with this because they're just sharing that information out and putting his face out front, and we love having them a part of this, and definitely look forward to their cooperation and support in finding him as well.
Because it is a small community, and I'm sure there's communities that want to help, is there going to be a community search effort or?
Well, again, if we find a lead on where he may be, absolutely. I mean, I think again, we're steering towards that he might be deceased, and I'm not convinced that he's deceased yet. Of course, if we get information that points us in that direction, absolutely, we'll be more than happy to organize searches, and we would love to have these groups be a part of that and go out and find him. But we have no information to lead us to that opinion yet. All right, thank y'all.
Yes, ma'am.